Okay. Today we have Darius. Darius, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background and maybe take us back to before you even knew what UX UI design was. Like what was your life like?
Yeah, how you doing, everybody? So my name is Darius. Currently, I'm a product designer at New Visions for Public Schools. I help design the attendance and academic section of the portal, which is the product that New Visions created. Um, I guess to bring it back, I started in the summer of 2021. So it's about 2 years of experience now. But yeah, when I first started, I had no idea of what UX and UI design was. I wasn't even like tech savvy. I remember just thinking about it back then. Like I think I maybe knew how to like copy paste. That was probably the most technical thing I could do back then. I had a very so I was in my senior year of college where I started to realize like I needed to find somewhere to kind of put my interest and like, develop some skills. I had a traditional like research background. I had a bachelor's and an associate's degree in urban studies and sociology. So I studied cities, group behavior patterns. I did some research. So kind of like some of the foundations there were already, there in terms of like the UX and UI and UX research. But yeah, that's kind of like where I started. I just didn't know where to, start, and I knew I wanted to be creative, and I knew I wanted to also be like research background. And I just couldn't find a career within that. But doing a bunch of research, I came across UX and UI. Eventually, later came across Avocademy, and then that's kind of how things began.
Yeah, so take us back to 20, you said 2021. Were you still in school or were you like working a job? Like what was your situation then?
Yeah, I was my senior year. I think yeah, like towards like right before I was going to graduate. So I think we first met in like May 2021 or April 2021, where I first took that the 30-minute mentor meeting. So yeah, I was full time student, part time work. I was working for my community college at the time, where I was helping students with professional development, resume writing, cover letters, interview prep, and like helping them get internships. So that's kind of what I was doing
Cool.
before I started design.
Cool. So you graduated college or you're about to graduate college, like you want a career that's creative. You said I found UX design. Were you like what were you Googling? Like what were you like searching on YouTube? Like what keywords were you entering to like find UX design?
Yeah, it's a good question. If I remember correctly, I used to watch some YouTubers, primarily Nathaniel Drew and Matt Diabella, and they're like productivity people. Like they have like a bunch of like self development stories and stuff like that. And I realized that they had like a certain skill. Like they took a skill and they like maximized their interest in it. And I felt like I was lacking that. Like I didn't have something that I committed to. And I realized that's what I wanted. I wanted a skill that I could own, that I could like, nurture over time and just grow and just 3, 4, 5 years later, be a even better version of when I started. And so I used my research skills. I looked up like um, freelance careers or freelance skills or just things like that, like what were freelancers doing, and like I think I came across like videography, like illustrations, like all types of like specific skills that you could
Right.
kind of like own. And I think I came across this page that had like 115 different freelance careers. And I looked at all those careers and I like started writing down the ones that were interesting to me, like, without even thinking could I do it, just more like was it interesting to me.
Yeah.
By the time I finished that list, I think I had like 12. And of those 12, I think eight were design, like UX design, UI design, product design, um, software engineering, illustration. And then I realized that there was a theme there. That was like design, was like the overall
Yeah.
theme. I didn't know what that was, but as I did some research, I realized I always like kind of had that eye. Like I would look at things and say like, oh, like, how would I improve it? But I just didn't think that that was a job. I thought like
Yeah.
that's just how the product is and it just develops, I guess, like with engineering. Um, yeah, so from there, I pinpointed UX and UI, looked up the requirements, and from there, that's when I started to Google, like, how could I get my foot in the door, like education wise or certification wise.
Yeah. So on that note, there's tons of ways to learn design, right? So you could self-teach, you could go the bootcamp route, or you can go back to school. Obviously, you were
Hmm.
just wrapping up at school in like your traditional sense of schooling. Um, why did you decide to go like the bootcamp route, or like the structured program route, rather than a career, like, well, rather than a degree, or like self-teaching? Did you explore those
Yeah,
options, or were you just like, this is it, I'm gonna do this?
I tried to find uh, every option possible. So I was still lucky enough to have like a couple elective credits in my senior year, and so I reached out to my computer science program at my school. They had everything but UX and UI design. And I was just like
Yeah.
frustrated to me. I was like, okay. So I went to their career office and I'm like, hey, like, is there internships you guys know about, or like, do you send any of your computer science students to like UX and UI places, or places that maybe of that nature? I just hit a brick wall, and I went to like my community college and see if they had any connects, and people heard about it, but again, no connects. So from there, I just did a little bit of basic self-learning, watched a couple of YouTube videos, like just the basic foundations. I came across the Google Certificate program, and then I came across General Assembly. So immediately I had like a more affordable version with like a simpler outline, and then I had like the super expensive version with like a 6-month course and like all the everything you needed to know about design.
Yeah.
So immediately I was like, okay, like I really want this. So as crazy as General Assembly sounds, like that might be what I'm gonna do. Definitely the algorithm was listening or something, but on Instagram, Avocademy came up, and I was like, let me check this out real quick. Um, that was when the start of like design was starting to populate on my phone. Um, yeah, and then I went from there, just checked in the website. I think this was still early Avocademy. There was maybe less than 500 students at the time. Yeah, and then that's when I set up that meeting with you. We talked about the basics, and I remember that meeting. I went in kind of like nervous, and then I remember asking you a couple questions. But the thing that stuck out for me the most was like you didn't sell me the program. You weren't trying to like take my money and like here's a course
Yeah.
and learn. It was more just like you found my skills that I currently had, and you plugged in like where I could, connect it to UX and UI design,
Yeah.
and kind of like help me align the stars for myself. And I think that's where I realized, like, okay, like as long as you have one person believing in you, like that might be a good sign. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad you point that out. I think ever from, from the beginning of when I created the program, we've always said like, the sales calls, I call them therapy calls, because they're really like people that are just like, I really have, I really don't like my job, or I'm really in this situation that I don't enjoy, or I really want to find something, right, that I love and want to do. And when we hire for that role, right, like what we call now career advisors, it's really people that have empathy and can help connect like your background, and like tell you, yeah, I think you'd be a good fit, or I don't know if you'd be a good fit, but you can try it if you want. And it's a lot more of that than like, give us your money, right? Like, we want to, we want to help people that we think want the help and need it, and like are passionate about it, rather than just like take everyone's money and go
yeah.
down that route. So I'm glad that it translated even back then. So you decide to join the program. Around what time was that? And then walk us through kind of like your experience through foundations. Like, did it take you a long time? Were you scared? Were you like frustrated? Were you like, oh, maybe I made the wrong choice? Like, what was your feeling, right, as you're going through that first program?
Yeah. So it started in May 2021, and I remember a big thing. Like I was working part time, so it was a big commitment to like commit to this program because I think it was 1,200 at the time. And I remember like that was a lot of money. So, like that was like months and months worth of like what I was getting paid back then. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna just put it in and see what happens. So immediately that was my first thing. Like I was making a big purchase. I was very anxious to see like would it meet my expectations. When I opened the course, there was just like 18 different lessons. And I was like, all right, this is gonna take a long time. So for me, that's like a good sign. Like, there's a lot of content here. It was like the right content because like on my phone it was all kinds of stuff, but here it was very step by step. This is exactly what you need. You can look for anything else if you need. But I started it. Um, I think it was really good that it started at the UX research. Like that was your initial phase because like
Yeah.
that was like comfort to me. Like that was like right where I like started, you know. So for me to go straight into
Yeah.
research and read a lot of these articles and see the process, like all these terms were familiar to me. So for me, that was like, all right, that's a good, you know, connection. I at least understand, you know, this part. And so from there, I got into the course. I think it took me about 8 weeks to finish it, you know, because school and I was working. But I remember I would take this. I would do these lessons and like the independent project. I think like every night at like 6 to like 10, 11 o'clock at night. Like that was just my favorite part of my day. And that's when I realized like, all right, there might be something here because like I just worked and went to school, but I'm looking forward to working more on like this new thing. And
Yeah.
like that was just like my regular everyday routine, which is going on you know, Avocademy, you know, going on Slack and just like that to me like I was learning something I really wanted to learn. Um, and yeah, I just kept going at it. I think learning curves came with the Figma learning definitely, and the like design theory, um, color theory, like fonts, like all the stuff that I never really like went into. Um, that was definitely intimidating at the time, but it wasn't like super like the articles that we were reading and like what we were doing weren't that difficult. Like they were like at the level that you know you needed it to be. But I think the biggest thing was like the mentoring in between, um, and then like the support of like you don't need to have a perfect project. The point is that you're executing what you're learning and getting feedback and you know iterating on it. So right there, like I was already getting comfortable with design critiques and kind of understanding like hey, like no one's saying your design is bad. It's like the problem or the way you're solving your problem can improve. Like that's where like
Yeah.
that delineation like separated, and I started to like lose the ego in my work. I think that was really important because that's one of the biggest things in design. Like you can't really be your work. You're solving a problem at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I did that. It took me a couple weeks longer, but when I finished it, it was like one of my favorite like moments. I definitely met a lot of people during that time. I had a lot of friends that like were my user testing, you know, people
Yeah.
user interviews, and like to see that first project like finalized was definitely like a big moment where I was like, all right, like I could see myself doing this again and again and again.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Yeah, you touched on a lot of really important things, which I think looking back, you probably see it as that, but I'm sure like when you were in it and like you were getting those revision requests and like you were going over and over again, you were like, but it's good, you know, why do I have to keep fixing it? But
yeah,
you really explained it in a way that like makes perfect sense. I think now when you look at it, right, like a year later. Um, Awesome. So you finished foundations. You're like super proud of that first project. You did you join CJ right away, or did you wait a little bit? Like, what did that kind of transition look like?
I think I joined right away. I think maybe like yeah, had like a week delay, and then I was like, nah, I'm gonna go straight. I think I
Cool,
started in September.
nice. So you start CJ in September. You work on what, two projects at the beginning? Is that it, or did you do more than that?
Three. I did three projects.
Three? Okay, cool.
Hmm.
And then let's jump to your job search phase. So, if I remember correctly, your job search phase took like a little bit longer than like what we were
Yeah.
typically seeing back then. Walk us through like what that felt like. Not it taking longer, but like what the job search felt like. Because for people with your background, and I'll summarize it to folks like straight out of school, right, or folks without a ton of like professional work experience. We do see sometimes that it takes a little bit longer to land that first job because not only does the employer have to take a risk on your design skills being you, but they also have to take a risk on you've never worked in an office setting, you've never held like a job for a long period of time because you're straight out of school, right? um, so tell us a little bit about like your job application process. It's we know it's a roller coaster, but kind of walk us through what that was like.
Yeah. In summary, it was like I don't know, definitely one of the more stressful times in my life, but like uh one of the biggest learning lessons, I guess, as well. I think it took me 6, 7 months to get the internship, and then it took me after the internship, it took me like 4 months, 4 or 5 months to get this full-time job that I currently have. So in total, combined waiting of like 11-ish, 12, maybe almost like a year basically of like just
Yeah.
full-time job searching. Um, I think to get my internship, it took me over 600 applications. I had like 50 plus interviews with like different companies, and like I don't even know how many, like what the level of rounds were with each one, but
Yeah.
I think I by the time I got to the internship, I had already experienced, first round, second round. Um, what else? Like design challenges, portfolio reviews. So I kind of knew what to expect.
Yeah.
So at
And this
that
was
point, I just kept going back.
a full-time internship, right? Like it was 40 hours a week.
Yeah, yeah. So it's full time
Um,
internship,
yeah.
8 weeks or 10 weeks.
For like a medium-ish size startup, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
not sure. It's 200 people ish. That's like medium size.
Yeah, it's not small. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So about 200,
Um,
200 people.
and that was for 2.5 months, the internship.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. And then you finished the internship and you said it took you another 4 months of job searching. Did you do anything differently the second time of job searching versus the first time?
The first time I was just like trying to get my name out there in as many applications as possible. The second time I looked at the second time I had more experience now. Like I had actually worked, because with Avocademy, I had worked with like smaller projects. I guess I didn't have like a company to like, I guess, um, advertise for me, I guess, if that's that, or advocate for me. Like I had Avocademy, but they were like small projects. Whereas like when I had here, like I had to actually work with an engineer now. I had actually work with product managers. I had that aspect that I didn't have with the Avocademy at the time. So my portfolio, I guess, got stronger because I had a better, project with a bunch of different angles that I didn't have before. Um, I iterated on my resume like maybe 15 times. Like after that, just like checking what could I improve, whether it's like the bullet points, the links, like how can I make it, a better resume.
Yeah.
I think I
I
like
love
started
that
doing cover letters.
you're talking about iterating on your resume and not the portfolio, right? Like
Yeah.
people forget how important that resume is because that resume is what's going to get someone to click to the portfolio, right? So you have to get that resume right to catch
Hmm.
someone's attention to then look at your work. Because most of the time it's not your work that's
Yeah.
the problem, right? It's like getting
Hmm.
someone's attention when there's like hundreds of applicants for the role. So I love that you touched on the resume. You might be the first person that has touched on it in like the 20 some episodes we've done so far. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. No, of course. That was what I did for work before I did this. Like I guess that was like a leverage on my side. Like I knew the aspects of writing a resume. I guess from there I knew that you could improve it. But yeah, that resume got there were so many different copies that I had to update like every 2 weeks just to make sure I was putting the right one out there.
Yeah. So you find this job that you're at now. How long have you been at your job now?
I think it's gonna be 5 months pretty
Nice.
soon. So about 5 months. Yeah.
So how does it feel now, right? Like going, thinking back to 2 years ago, right? Because we're, it's May, and now you're here. You have this full time job, a whole career, right, ahead of you. How does that feel, right? Like, did you think it was possible back then, or like, what does that feel like now?
It's definitely like, still surreal. Like I definitely have not taken it for granted. Like every day is just like crazy to me. Even 5 months into this, did I think it was possible? Yeah, that's why I like was so hard on myself. Um, I just didn't know what it entailed. Like I would remember like watching people's like day in the life of a product designer or like their YouTube shorts or like Instagram reels or all that kind of stuff. Just like seeing people post glimpses of what like, a real design job would be, and seeing people in the Share Your Wins channel. That was like super inspiring. Um, but yeah, it was crazy just thinking that that was possible. But yeah, like since being here, definitely appreciative. And then just looking back at the 2 years, like the growth definitely it's probably the biggest thing that catches my attention. Like some things that I didn't even understand back then are like second nature to me now,
Yeah.
or just the level of complexity um, with like problem solving and like the type of problems that I currently solve. I don't think I would have even understood, what that would have been like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like a really interesting journey, but I think it was difficult, but it was a lot of learning in between. And
Yeah.
I think I'm getting to the point now where things are starting to get more like understandable. Like the rough waters of learning are like
Yeah.
slowing. Like I
Yeah.
understand most things now, so that's probably
Yeah.
like the biggest win there.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, your journey. I would love it if, before we close, if you can share a piece of advice to someone that maybe is you 2 years ago, right? And is considering the career, they've made the list of different careers and they're realizing, all right, design might be it, right? What is something you wish, somebody would have told you back then, or, what would be your advice to someone in your shoes?
Yeah, I've come across this like people have asked me this, not even just design, but like people want to do other things that are like super out there or risky or like very big dream type of thing. And the biggest thing I learned is just to stay committed. Like if you believe you're gonna, if you could close your eyes and like think about it and see like yourself on the other side, you can definitely do it. You just have to be consistent. Like there were so many days that I wanted to give up. I remember like there was a section of like 6 months where I was like unemployed and just still committing to this dream. Like I was waking up like at random times, just like super out of flow, but still like put in some time to watch some videos, read, do small challenges, and I think that's what kind of set me apart in that process. Like I could have give up many times, and I think many people will face that part where they want to give up.
Yeah.
But if you push that mentality away, it definitely builds you up to get to where you want to get. And I feel like yeah, if it's worth having, if it's competitive, it's gonna put you through that, and that's just the natural course of like chasing a dream.
Yeah.
It's gonna make you question how much you really want it, and if you don't want it, you're gonna fall off. But if you want it, like you're gonna see the other side, and then through that learning, you're gonna have a new personality and like your own I don't know, like your own version of yourself. Like if in regards to design or whatever career, like you're gonna have your own niche style because of what you went through. Like everyone had their journey, and they're gonna have their own style of whatever career it is because of that journey they went through. So
Yeah. No, I
stick to
think
the course.
that's so important to point out. A lot of the times we get comments about like how we make this sound so easy, right? Like in our like little TikToks or things that we post, and like I'm trying as much as possible to kind of share like these stories where you tell us, right, this was not easy, but it was worth it. Because I want people to understand like it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it, right? And then start
Hmm.
making 70, 80, 90K, 100K a year. But like it takes work, it takes dedication. So I really love that you just shared that about like how you have to be really committed and like put in the time and know that you'll want to give up. But if you don't give up, you could end up on the other side with this kind of amazing story that you shared with us today. Um, but yeah, thank you, Darius, for joining us. Really appreciate you sharing your story.
I appreciate it, Marco. Thank you.